Because knowing that you guys are, I want to say, brimming with talent in the minor league levels, does it change the philosophy and the calculus when you're at the deadline?
I think that's a big part of it. There's always additional risk when you're asking someone to do something at the big league level they haven't done before. But we also don't want to go out and give up a ton of prospect value, a ton of future value, and bringing in someone for 2 months who we're pretty confident we have someone who is capable of providing that level of production if we need it currently in our organization. And in terms of our guys at AAA, look, we're talking about predominantly, I imagine, McLean and Sproat.
I didn't say a single name.
Those guys are throwing the ball really well. To their credit, they have absolutely put themselves in the conversation. I don't know when or if it's going to happen. It has to line up. Not only they're doing their part, but also we have the need, and it makes sense from a roster perspective. They've both pitched extremely well over the last month or so. It did make our jobs a little bit easier at the deadline.
Around this time last year when we spoke to you, I believe everybody was asking you about what Brandon Sproat was going to have to do to get that jump to AAA. I feel like now we're starting to see that conversation with Jonah Tong.
I think Jonah has done a tremendous job. He's been probably the most dominant pitcher in the minor leagues this year. And when you have a pitcher who's been as dominant as Jonah has been at a single level, he begins to take a real hard look as to when it's time to get him to that next level. And I think we're probably in the process of taking that real hard look. And I think before the season's out, he's going to get a chance to show what he can do at the next level.
Welcome to Meet at the Apple, presented by PC Richard & Son. I'm Vito Calisi. Jonathan Bear not with me right now because it's right before the game. And you know, John's a man of a million talents running away at all times, but I'm here to remind you to rate, review, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, write a long review. I cannot say enough how much it helps us. So please do that. But I don't want to waste your guys' time because today's episode is an absolute banger of an episode. We got 3 huge interviews today. We're calling this our deadline special because we have David Stearns, Cedric Mullins, and Ryan Helsley all joining the show today. We're going to start you off with David Stearns because he's the guy that put all the pieces together. So we figured get the blueprint before we go to the pieces. So stay tuned for a really cool episode. And then I'll see you guys after all those interviews to wrap this bad boy up. Okay. But thank you for listening and enjoy this interview with David Stearns. Welcome to Meet at the Apple, presented by PC Richard & Son. I'm Vito Calisi. That's Jonathan Barron. And then we're doing this for 2 years in a row now. So I'm going to call this our annual trade deadline episode with David Stearns, president of baseball operations here at the New York Mets.
It sounds good to me. We'll make it an annual tradition. Post-deadline recap. You guys can tell me what I did wrong.
No, that's not what we do here.
I'm sure there are opinions.
So first, I think it would love to get your perspective on, especially versus last year, 2 very different trade deadlines, and kind of talking about how you approach each deadline differently and like what the strategy is and how they differ from each other.
Let's go back to 24. The 24 deadline, as of early June in 24 deadline, it looked like we were going to have a little bit of a different path to that one, right? So we were preparing 2 different trajectories throughout our deadline preparation, which created an enormous amount of work for our player personnel group, our scouts, our analysts, to try to make sure that if we did have to subtract for the team and play for the future, we had the ability to do that. We were prepared to do that. And if we played better, which fortunately we did, and had the ability to add to the team, that we were also prepared to engage in that market. So that was very complicated and time consuming. This one was a little bit more straightforward, where from get-go in this season, we've played well, and we were looking at the deadline season as a time to add to our team, make ourselves better. And then it's figuring out, all right, where do you want to add to the team? And what are the segments of the team that you could augment that would be most impactful? What type of players are available in those segments that you think you can access? And so those are the conversations that we were having from, let's say, early to mid-June on, rather than trying to figure out what direction we were actually going to go in, which is much more complicated.
But what about the league at large? I feel like, especially with the expanded postseason now, more teams have reason to believe that they can compete, they can make the playoffs, and there are probably way more buyers than there are sellers. And I feel like that makes an arm race kind of develop, and you see some tit for tat trading. And especially right now, it feels as if the National League is more wide open than we've ever seen it. I mean, there's 6 teams, obviously Mets included, that you can see representing the National League in the World Series. Yeah. Have you experienced a deadline with all of those things being present as well?
I think this deadline, especially in the National League, there were teams that declared themselves later than normal. So there were teams that as of maybe the Monday before the deadline, so the deadline was on Thursday, I think, the Monday or Tuesday before the deadline, we're still trying to figure out the direction. So teams like the Cardinals, the Diamondbacks, teams that became clear sellers, the Giants, trying to figure out exactly where they were going. And so those teams becoming sellers, I think at the end of the day, made it a slightly more balanced market than it might have looked like it was going to be going in. But had those teams performed just a little bit better in the weekend or week leading up to the deadline, they very well may have added to the buying frenzy, and you may not have had quite as many players available. So this was a unique one, I think, in how late certain teams got to their strategic point. And in the case of the Giants, we were able to benefit from that and get a really good reliever.
Yeah, I mean, you really didn't see, I think the Josh Naylor trade was the first move, whereas last year, you guys had acquired Phil Maton, kind of mid-July, so it felt like things sort of came into fruition a bit later. Another thing I noticed with this deadline is there were different varieties of buying. I think that some teams were like, we're emptying the cupboard, like our top 5 prospects, take them. Yeah. We need this guy for our playoff run, and then we're going to make another deal and another deal. And we've heard you talk about it often. It's about winning now, but also sustained success. And I'm sure there are some guys that the Mets feel are untouchable prospects, and other teams might have traded some untouchable prospects. But as they say, flags fly forever.
Yeah.
So what is that challenge? How do you balance them?
So I'll say the first thing I say is I don't think it's healthy to say that anyone is untouchable. There are players that are really tough for us to trade. Players who we think are going to be really good players for the Mets for a long, long time. But there are deals that you can make with those players. We just didn't happen to find any of those at this deadline. Maybe we will in the offseason, maybe we will next deadline after. But from my perspective, until you find those deals, those really special deals, it's very difficult to trade players that you think can really play on an everyday basis or start at the front of the rotation for an extended period of time. And those are the types of guys that you're generally trying to look to avoid trading. And I think we're fortunate that at the top of our system, we have some of those types of players right now. It's not going to be arrow up for all of them all the time, right? There are going to be speed bumps when they get to the major league level. There are going to be times where we find things that they have to improve upon, whether it's to get to their power at the major league level or get hitters out at the major league level, whatever it is. But we think we have some really talented players at the top of our system. And I'm pleased that we were able to add to our team the way we were without having to move some of those guys that we think are really special.
Kind of like piggybacking off of what John's question is and what you just said is there like also a frustration of you're kind of watching the market get set by other teams in a way, and you have to be like you see somebody go off and you're like, oh wait, now you're saying that this is what the market is when you had a whole plan for what you were looking at?
Yeah, that's part of the fun of what we do though. And every team's going to have a little bit of a different approach to these things. Every team's going to value their players differently, value what they're getting differently, value the control that you may or may not be trading for differently. And so what we try to do is really focus on our own valuation. If we get too caught up in what any other club is doing or where a club is setting the market on either side, a club set a market too high, club set a market low, we have to make sure we're really comfortable with our valuation of players, how we're evaluating our internal group, and then understanding what type of impact we think we can get from bringing people in.
All right, so let's talk about those evaluations. You guys had Ryan Helsley, you guys had Tyler Rogers, you guys had Gregory Soto a little bit earlier, and Cedric Mullins. What attracted you to those guys, and what do you expect those guys to bring to the New York Mets?
I think for all three of those guys, we really believe that they can pitch in high leverage, late game situations. And all three of them in very different ways have demonstrated they can do. And so if we look at cumulatively what our bullpen is right now, I think you can argue we have 7 guys in our bullpen every single night who can pitch in the 8th inning or late. And so what that allows us to do is some of those guys can pitch in the 5th inning, the 6th inning, or the 7th inning. And if we get to the 11th inning, some of those guys can pitch there as well. And that is valuable now, and it's probably even a little bit more valuable in October. And so part of what we were doing was figuring out, okay, what makes the most sense for us to do today for the rest of the regular season, for the 50-ish games we have left? And then also, we believe we're a playoff team. We believe we're going to get to October. Once we get there, what can we do that has the most impact for that month? And we made the assessment that adding to our bullpen not only helped us now, but would really help us come playoff time.
I mean, like, obviously the bullpen is the hardest thing to build in the offseason because you never know what's going to happen. And it seems like this year, the deadline was, for everybody, was mostly bullpen focused. Do you think that that's just the way the league is moving, where every year it's probably going to lead more and more towards bullpen?
I think there was a little bit of a supply skew this year. There were a lot of pretty good relievers available and maybe not quite as many really good starters available. Understandably, clubs that had starting pitching available set really high prices for those starters. That is pretty standard at the deadline. I think maybe this deadline a little bit different because the quality of the stars available might not have been quite what we're used to. And so the prices were normally deadline high and maybe the quality wasn't quite there. So we opted for the market where there was just a little bit more supply, where we felt we lined up best with teams and were able to bring in players that we're very confident are going to be able to really impact the playoff push.
Now, we saw the Dodgers win a World Series last year by bullpenning games, and some people were like, oh, they're punting a game. But they weren't punting games. They were doing that strategically because they were able to throw out arm after arm after arm that was going to get through innings relatively quickly. And I remember back the 2015 Royals that didn't have an overwhelming starting staff. They had Cueto, they had Volquez, but behind them, they were throwing Chris Young out there. But it was that bullpen. It was guy after guy after guy. When do you think baseball changed, especially the postseason philosophy of, maybe 4 innings for our starter and we're getting him out of there because we're gonna win this game with that dominant relief corps?
Yeah, the 2015 Royals is probably the cleanest example early on that I can remember. I think then the 2017 then Indians with Andrew Miller.
Yes.
If you remember, Andrew Miller, an elite late inning reliever, they started using him in the 4th, 5th inning of playoff games, which was very unique at the time. Now we're kind of all doing stuff like that with our high leverage relievers in playoff games. But I think that got us on this trend. You then look at the 21 Braves and how they got through the playoffs, relying heavily on a really good bullpen, a bullpen that really caught fire in October. And then certainly the Dodgers last year, another good example of it. So there's no one way to win a World Series. There's no one way to build a pitching staff. We thought that given our current talent and where we think we're well set up on the team right now and what was available, this was the best path for us.
So today we saw that Dom Hamel is going to be making his major league debut with the Mets. And John and I pretty pumped about this because this is a guy we've spoken to going back to 2023 was the first time we spoke to Dom and just seeing him rise in the ranks. And what was it about Dom that you thought right now is the time for him to finally get his chance?
The cool thing about Dom's story is that once again, I think is a great example to guys coming through the system that things don't always go perfectly, but you can still get there. And so Dom obviously rose through the ranks, the prospect rankings very quickly, right? Top 100 prospect at times in baseball, depending on the list, had a really impressive start to his professional career, then got to AAA and hit some speed bumps and had to reassess how he did things, changed roles a little bit. He's now in more of a length bulk reliever role than that pure starting role. And then to be able to then get to the quality where we feel comfortable calling him up and putting him in a major league game, I think speaks to his determination, speaks to our coaching staff's ability to help him get there. And I think right now he's throwing the ball well. We have a need here. Clearly, we're going through that spot in our bullpen is a little bit on a rotation right now. Dom's throwing the ball well, and he deserves the opportunity.
Dom is one of a few pitchers who, I guess you could say are on the precipice of making their major league debut. And going back to the starting pitching conversation, obviously it's a really big conversation on Mets Twitter, which I'm sure you're scouring frequently like
always.
We are as well.
Always.
But obviously there are many players down in AAA and possibly even AA that could make an impact here at the major league level and help the Mets win games in 2025 going into the postseason. Because knowing that you guys are, I want to say, brimming with talent in the minor league level, especially the last couple of years, all the additions, amateur, international, and all of that. Does it change the philosophy and the calculus when you're at the deadline saying, well, we might not need to overpay because we might have a guy that can give us that same value?
I think that's a big part of it. And there's always additional risk when you're asking someone to do something at the big league level that they haven't done before. There's no question about that. But we also don't want to go out and give up a ton of prospect value, a ton of future value, and bringing someone for 2 months who we're pretty confident we have someone who is capable of providing that level of production if we need it currently in our organization. And in terms of our guys at AAA, look, we're talking about predominantly, I imagine, McLean and Sproat.
I didn't say a single name.
And those guys are throwing the ball really well. And to their credit, they have absolutely put themselves in the conversation. I don't know when or if it's going to happen. It has to line up. Not only they're doing their part, but also we have the need, and it makes sense from a roster perspective. But they've both pitched extremely well over the last month or so. It's been great for us to see, and you're right. It did make our jobs a little bit easier at the deadline.
So around this time last year when we spoke to you, I believe we were asking you, everybody was asking you about what Brandon Sproat was going to have to do to get that jump to AAA. I feel like now we're starting to see that conversation with Jonah Tong. And you've said this in the past, you're not afraid to promote guys. If somebody earns it, it's their spot. So what do you kind of see as the trajectory for Jonah Tong throughout the rest of the season?
I think Jonah has done a tremendous job. He's been probably the most dominant pitcher in the minor leagues this year. And when you have a pitcher who's been as dominant as Jonah has been at a single level, you begin to take a real hard look as to when it's time to get him to that next level. And I think we're probably in the process of taking that real hard look. And I think before the season's out, he's going to get a chance to show what he can do at the next level.
On the topic of Jonah, because he was here when you got here, but you just completed your second draft. Your first draft has returned great results thus far. Your first pick, Carson Benj, is already in AA. He homers virtually every day, it feels like. You guys used some of that 2024 draft capital to acquire some of the guys that are now here to help the Mets win. Since you got here, what improvements have you seen in the organization at large when it comes to player development, and how much of a jump the player development system has taken?
Yeah, so when we look at the drafts, the first thing I'll say is the folks who deserve the credit for the drafts are Chris Gross, our amateur talent evaluators, all of our analysts who work with them to make those decisions. That's the group that's working year round to make these picks, and they deserve the credit for the fruits of what that 24 draft has yielded so far. I show up 3 days ahead of time and ask annoying questions, and they humor me, and then they go make the right picks.
You know, the FAN callers should know that, because everyone's always screaming about the GM or the POBO. It's never about the VP of amateur scouting.
There is an army of really talented people who are working hard to make sure we're making the best picks possible. And you know, what's exciting about that draft is, as you pointed out, it's not just Carson Benj at the top, and he's been outstanding. And what he's done this year has been wonderful. But it's guys all the way through that draft that are being valued by the industry, and we were able to use some of that value to get players back in this trade deadline. And from a development standpoint, I think what we've seen is across all facets of the game, whether it's our pitching group, which was largely in place before I got here, our hitting group, where Jeff Albert was here before I got here, but we've added some folks to work along with him. We've added some affiliate hitting coaches, and then an area where we've spent a lot of time over the last maybe year, 18 months is really shoring up our instruction and our philosophies around defense, base running, some of those softer skills that at times can get overlooked, but that really do add value and help you win games at the major league level. And I think when we look at some of the big steps our prospects, especially our position player prospects, have made over the course of the last year, during this season, a lot of them are in those softer skills. Our guys are getting a lot better defensively. They're getting better on the bases, and that helps just augment what is already a pretty impressive hitting group.
I want to follow up on what you just said. Vito and I always talk when we do our series recaps, when the New York Mets are winning ball games and they're getting hot, it's not the pitching, it's not the offense necessarily, but it's the base running, taking the extra base, going first to third, stealing a base, putting the pressure on, and also playing good defense, turning that double play behind a ground ball pitcher like David Peterson, not giving away those extra outs. Where do you evaluate right now where this team is when it comes to base running and when it comes to defense?
Yes, I think at times this year we've been really good, and at times this year we probably haven't played quite up to our potential, especially defensively. I think our base running has been pretty impressive. especially when you consider that we don't have world's fastest team. And we've got guys like Juan Soto who are now becoming stolen base threats when they haven't been previously. I mean, Juan, this is going to sound crazy, but Juan's got a chance to be 30-30 this year.
I was going to say 2020, but I love 30-30.
I mean, I don't know that he's, we may run out of time on the stolen bases, but he's got a chance. And that's a huge testament to the work he's put in on the stolen bases, to Antoine Richardson and the work they've done. And then defensively, I think we've had really solid defensive games, and then we've probably had games where we've made a few too many mistakes. And if we're going to win a World Series, we know that's an area that we got to tighten up.
So the young Mets core is something that, we love to talk about on a weekly basis, and we love to watch. And after the deadline, it was really exciting to see that core stay intact. Just for you, was it a relief to be able to keep all those guys together? And how important is the success of this team for those guys to just deliver in the second half?
Yeah, we're relying on a mix of established veterans and some superstar players with guys at the outset of their careers. And at least from my perspective, that's the right way to do this. It allows us to remain competitive year in, year out. It allows you to have this constant wave of talent coming through the organization. And we've seen significant contributions from all of our young players. And I recognize some of them haven't been quite as consistent as they would like, we would like, fans would like, but that's part of being a young player in the big leagues. And all of these guys deserve continued opportunity, continued chances. We're seeing right now with Alvy coming back, the type of impactful player he can be. We've seen flashes with each of Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, how impactful they can be. And now it's just about continued reps. And I'm not going to sit here and say, guarantee all of them turn into all-star caliber players. But that's not what we need. Maybe one of them turns into an all-star caliber player and the others are just good major league players. Or maybe some of them develop the positional versatility that allow them to impact games in other ways. So I think there are a number of ways that young players can develop, and it's important that we allow them to keep having that opportunity.
I want to talk about Ronnie for a little bit, a guy who obviously started the season injured. He had to really strengthen the leg and then get back to playing competitive baseball in AAA. An injury occurred. He was the obvious guy to come up. He came back, hair on fire in AAA, and he hasn't gone back down. And there have been a few opportunities where it looked like, with Jesse Winker coming back, who was going to get sent down. People thought it could be him. He has not gone back down. What have you seen from Ronnie at the major league level, especially the last couple of weeks? He hits the big home run against Suarez at the 4-hit game in San Fran. That excites you the most about the potential this player has?
What excites me the most is that he didn't play baseball last year, right? This guy didn't play baseball for a full calendar year, and he's now doing this at the major league level. This has far exceeded my expectations this year for what Ronnie was going to be able to do. I thought this needed to be really a year where he reacclimates himself to competing. And instead, he reacclimated himself to competing exceptionally quickly. We called him up, and he's held his own here. And as you said, he got some massive hits for us on that West Coast trip. He has not looked overmatched at all, playing a really quality third base. I think all of those are really good signs if we just take a step back and recognize this player suffered a very significant injury. The rehab was not smooth. There were complications throughout the rehab. And now, after missing baseball for a year, he's back playing at the highest level and getting huge hits off of really good pitchers.
So a few weeks ago, we retired David Wright's number. And I remember the last time we spoke to you, we talked about how it was coming up, and you were saying how you were looking forward to it as, somebody who grew up watching this team. What was the day like for you? Like, was it exciting? Did you get to have a moment? Cool. Did you get to speak to David that day?
Yeah, I talked to him shortly after he got to the ballpark and connected with him a little bit, and just to see, there are a couple of things that are really cool. The first is to see how genuinely appreciative he was of the day. It was real and genuine. I think sometimes, like, fans at home, you're watching on TV, you're like, what is that person actually feeling? He was feeling every bit of the emotion. And it was real and meaningful to him. And that was cool. It was cool for me to see how genuinely excited he was for our organization right now. This is a guy who has bled orange and blue for the majority of his life. And he was so happy with where the organization was and proud to be associated with the organization. And for someone in my position, I think for someone in Steve's position, to have former players, great players come back and be genuinely proud to be part of the organization is incredibly impactful for us. And so that was cool. And then watching the ceremony and just the love that was going back and forth, fans to David, and how much there was that just like reciprocal appreciation for what he meant for the organization and his appreciation of how the fans have impacted his life. All that made a huge impression on me. And I've seen a bunch of these types of days over my career in various places. We've had some great ones here since I've been here with Doc and Daryl. That was about as cool as I've been a part of, and I felt very fortunate to be here.
Yeah, I think a big part of what made that day so special is Vito and I, we don't remember Doc and Daryl, but if you're an older Met fan, you watch David Wright. If you're a millennial Met fan, or maybe even a bit younger, you watch David Wright, and number 5 was the guy. I don't know who's next. We'll have to see. But Speaking of the fans, we talk with a lot of guys we interview how important the fans are. We have seen packed houses. I mean, we saw an Angel series, a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Pretty cool.
I know WWE night was a big deal, but that entire week, packed houses. The past weekend, packed houses. Moving forward, packed houses. As the president of baseball operations, you're on the dugout, but what does it mean to you and your staff or the Mets fans to come out and support the team the way that they do?
Well, that's why you do it, is because you want people to be excited to root for the team. Like we're not, there's very limited reward and emotional satisfaction to doing something like this and no one else caring about it, right? You want to do something like this because it galvanizes the community, the fan base, hopefully the city. And I think right now we're feeling that. And we felt that last October. That's what made last October so special, is the in-stadium experience was so great. But then it would spill out of the stadium after games. And the 7 train would be going crazy. And Roosevelt Avenue would be going crazy. And the stuff like that is what makes this so rewarding for any of us who are working for the team and trying to build the team. And our fans have been tremendous. The number of fans, the noise they're making, and we're going to keep asking them to do it as we get into September and October.
So John and I have had this discussion. What's your favorite Let's Go Mets? Is it the walking down the ramp? Is it the old one walking down the ramp at Shea? Is it going down the stairs at Citi Field? Is it you see somebody else in the street wearing a Mets hat and give them a Let's Go Mets? The one in the stands during a game,
signing off a work call with a Let's Go Mets.
I've never done that.
No,
I've never.
You guys don't end your meetings with Let's Go Mets on 3?
We've never done that. It is cool. It is so the moments that are cool for me are I'm out with my kids doing something and my chaos, right? You're trying to corral 2 little kids. And you're completely in your own world, and then just someone in the back, is back let's go Mets, let's go, and that's cool. That people are that into it, that they're they're supportive, and it kind of reminds me once again how impactful this can be, and how invested our fans are.
On that topic, pro or anti-wave, real quick.
Oh, that's a tough one for me. I feel like I'm about to.
We're split on this.
Yeah,
you're with one of us.
It's context. It's context specific. So if we're in a tight game, it's a 3-2 game in the 8th inning. I'm not sure that's the appropriate time for a wave.
Totally fair.
10-2 in the 8th inning, you guys can wave all you want. But yeah, the leverage wave I could do without.
I'm with him. I'm with him on that.
I'm going to play the tape after this and show you that that's not what you've said at all.
I just want the fans to be having a good time, David. That's what I'm about. I'm about that.
All right, David. I have a pack of Fleer 91 baseball cards here.
All right, let's see what we got.
And we just want you to rip it open and see if you get anything good in there.
91.
And you can keep anything you like.
91. So I was 6.
Okay.
I was 6 in 91.
Fond memories of everybody. Is there bubble gum in there?
There is, and a sticker. And this collection does have, he could get a Doc or a Daryl graffiti piece, so we'll see if he rips it.
Ken Herbeck.
Okay.
That's a keeper. Jim Gott. Dave Wells. Before he was David Wells, he was Dave Wells. We'll go that. Steve Sachs, Yankees. Barry Larkin,
That's a good one.
Hall of Famer. HOF.
Almost the Met once upon a time, Barry Larkin.
That is exactly right. Junior Noboa, became scout. Randy Johnson. All right.
Once a deadline acquisition.
Mike Gallego, Oakland A's Mike Gallego. Rod Booker. That one I'm not familiar with. Oh, and a tough one for Mets fans, Mike Scott.
Mike, he was scuffing the ball.
Yeah, Mike Scott. That's a tough one for Mets fans. Maybe we'll scuff the card. But that's a pretty good pack right there.
Yeah, you have four keepers right there.
That's a pretty good pack.
I didn't know it was Dave Wells. I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that either. Blue Jays, Dave Wells. Randy Johnson, Barry Larkin. Those are two good ones right there.
Was that's a Mariners Johnson or is that an Expos Johnson?
This is a Mariners Johnson, Mariners Johnson, and a Reds Larkin. So that's a pretty good. It's a pretty good haul.
A couple Hall of Famers there.
Yeah.
Well,
nice work,
David. Thanks so much for the time. I'm glad we were able to provide you with some cards.
Thank you.
Out.
Yeah, haven't opened a pack of baseball cards in a long time.
I'm glad we can provide. And you know what? Zach, it's already confirmed. This is a yearly thing. David promised it. So, hopefully we'll see you before then. But thanks a lot.
Spring training.
Sounds, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
With us today, meeting at the Apple, Ryan Helsley, one of the newest Mets. I'm going to call it the new look Mets right now. But Ryan, I feel like coming into this team, like a lot of guys get to come in and it's fun, especially with the trade deadline. But when a player like yourself comes in with an entrance and a show, there's a little bit more excitement attached to it, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. I was definitely kind of caught off guard Friday night when I pitched. It was a good surprise, a cool surprise. Sold out crowd, I think, and I think the stadium had a good reaction to it. And it was definitely rowdy out there.
So, your first impression, I'm sure you had a great time. I'm sure the juices were pumping. Struck out the side. You became the 6th Met to strike out the side in his Mets debut. A nice little nugget there. Small exclusive club.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the entrance because it wasn't the most custom entrance. I know in St. Louis they had a lot of time for you to work on what it was. Obviously here with Edwin's entrance, I think one of the best in baseball. I'm sure you agree. But let's ideate a little bit more on Ryan Helsley's custom entrance. So we have all the lights. My first idea is some flame. You're a flamethrower. Did they have Cardinals? Did the Cardinals have flame for you?
Yeah, they did. Kind of
like real life fire.
Not real. I don't think real life.
Oh, I'm talking real life fire.
Yeah, that'd be a good twist on it for sure. They in St. Louis, everything kind of was red. Obviously, Cardinals are red. Flames are kind of red somewhat, so they'd kind of light the whole stadium. So it was a good twist on it.
Well, we now pretty much lead the league in the WWE style wrestling entrances between Edwin and yourself, and I'm sure you've seen Edwin's here. Just on social media, playing here as a visitor. What are some of your favorite closer entrances around the league?
Yeah, Edwin's is definitely up there. It's a lot of fun, to witness that. And, you hear the crowd erupt and it gets everybody going. And, I think it's a great thing for baseball when they do that in the 9th inning. And obviously it's the biggest inning of the game, because the game's coming to a close. And, I think Duran's is really cool that he had Minnesota and obviously now he's in Philly. He's a great pitcher. And, I think Josh Hader's is cool. He has in Houston. I think his is fireman. They did a good job there. I remember seeing his last year. So those few are up there.
Well, we're working on the fire for you. And you talked about Edwin and his being in the 9th inning. And obviously you guys are pretty interchangeable, I think. Mendy's got a wealth of options. You also add Tyler Rogers, Ryan Stanek, Reed Garrett, another guy that's closed games here. I'm curious your perspective. We've asked a lot of relievers this, and I'm sure we'll see Edwin possibly in the 8th and you in the 9th. As a guy that's pitched both, is there a big difference when your mindset is coming out of the bullpen, getting the 24th, 5th, and 6th, or 25, 6, 7 outs versus the previous 3?
I don't think so. You definitely feel the energy in the stadium. You can kind of feel everybody, the energy and emotions kind of building, in the 9th inning. But, I think as a pitcher, you always just want to get 3 outs, no matter if it's the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th, whatever it may be. You just always want to do your job and try to help the team win.
So we've talked to guys about the trade deadline specifically and how it kind of feels like first day of new school because you're coming in and there's all these new dynamics. But is the bullpen, is there almost even more of a sense of that because it's its own dynamic within a clubhouse in general?
Yeah, for sure. You spend a lot of your time with those guys down there in the bullpen, obviously during the game, and getting to know these guys is going to be fun. And obviously we have a lot of talent down there, so that's going to be cool to watch and witness and be a part of that. And, we got a lot of options down there, like you guys mentioned. And I've known a couple of these guys, just from playing them and kind of saying hello over the last few years. But it's an exciting group to be a part of.
You also pitched for Team USA 2023 World Baseball Classic. Pete Alonso is a member of that team. Jeff McNeil was a member of that team. Cedric Mullins was on that team. How many guys, when you walked in the clubhouse for the first time, did you already have a pretty good relationship with?
I knew Edwin a little bit. I was on the All-Star team with him in 22. Tyler, hadn't met him yet. I knew, obviously Lindor and those guys, just seeing him. And Frankie's a great guy and a nice guy. And, obviously getting to know him a little bit the last few days. He's a great teammate, and just seeing him from afar, he's always having fun playing the game. And, I've known Jeff too. He was at the 22 All-Star game. So, known a few guys, just like saying hello here and there. So hopefully get to know them a little better over the next couple months.
So can we talk about your heritage? Because I've seen that you're a proud member of the Cherokee Nation, and it's something that's really important to you. Mm-hmm. So I'd just like to get your perspective on it, because I feel like, one, it's just you don't hear many players in baseball having that lineage.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely proud of it. Most of it comes from my mom's side of the family. My dad has some too, but I'm very proud. I'm from a small town, about 10,000 people. It's actually the capital of Cherokee Nation. And, my first few years in the off seasons, I was able to kind of go back and help with stuff around the town, with like, they have an immersion school where they teach only Cherokee because it's a dying language. So they try to revive that through the next generations and stuff like that. So my first few years I would help in like their language program and just help with like after school programs and stuff like that and just be around those kids. But, I definitely try to go back and, just be a role model for those kids and, let them know I came from the same area as they did.
That's a good tidbit about you. I also read you have a twin brother.
Yep.
And the Mets just acquired Tyler Rogers, whose twin brother he used to play with. They got traded the same day. What does your twin brother do for a living?
He went to college for football. He played a couple years.
Okay.
And then he transferred to where I went to school and got drafted out of Northeastern State. And he got a degree in environmental health and safety. And he actually works for the tribe back home, Cherokee Nation. And he's over like construction and like a safety manager on sites and stuff right now when they're doing all these projects and stuff like that.
Do you think you would do like do you remember Double Dare? Remember the show on Nick? You remember, Family Feud?
Yep.
Did you do Family Feud? The twins versus twins?
That'd be sick.
You feel
down
confident?
for that. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
You feel like you guys are like better on the same page? Like you could take them?
Probably. I mean,
if you think hard, do you think you could think what he's thinking right now?
No chance.
Are you guys identical or fraternal?
Fraternal.
Okay, those guys, Tyler and Taylor, are identical. Yeah. So I want to find out if they've ever pulled some pranks. I mean, I know one's a lefty, one's a righty, right. But in the giant clubhouse, did they ever try to screw with the skipper? Speaking of twins, you and Edwin Díaz kind of have twin pitches with the slider. You guys have two of the most dominant sliders in all of baseball. I know you guys will spend plenty of time together moving forward here, but have you had a chance to talk slider with Edwin, pitch grip, when you want to deploy it, mixing that pitch in with both you guys throwing 100 easy?
Yeah, not yet. The first few days have been kind of a whirlwind and a lot going on, but definitely something I want to, kind of dive into and just kind of pick his brain because, he's been one of the best closers in the game for the last 6-7 years. And he's been dominant this year too. And, another all-star nod. And, he's a fun guy to watch pitch and, excited to be his teammate. Hopefully I can learn a thing or two from him.
So before you come over here, are you looking forward to, like, you've heard around the league about Jeremy Hefner, work he's done with guys, and also new with the team this year, Desi Driscoll. But, like, was that something you were looking forward to once you found out you were getting traded?
Yeah, for sure. I remember when we played, the Cardinals came to town earlier in the year, and, I think their starters had, like, the highest or best ERA in the league, and, I think they still are up there, or we are now, I guess. But
is that hard to get used to?
Yeah, I've been going back and forth on that the whole, the last few days. But yeah, I know Hef a little bit. He's actually he lives in Tulsa too, so I've known him some the last couple of years. And they have great pitching staff here, and I've tried to dive into it a little bit and hopefully get into it a little bit more and try to learn and get better.
I'm going to throw a dart here. Another Oklahoma guy, JT Realmuto. You have a good relationship with JT?
I don't know JT. I've never met him. No.
It's better off that way. I didn't want to hear you say, like, yeah, we're best friends. No, that's where it ends. Sorry, you don't know JT at all.
Yeah, I don't know JT. Big fan of him, though, being from Oklahoma. He was a stud in high school. I know he played football and stuff, too, and, high draft pick, and obviously a great catcher there in Philly, and, have a great team over there, too, so it'll be fun to compete against them down the stretch.
All right, last Oklahoma-based question. Boomer Sooner or Cowboys?
Probably Cowboys. My little brother goes to Oklahoma State. He's in veterinarian school there, and he's in his last year, so he's about to graduate from there.
All right, we got Noel McLean, we got Carson Bench coming up, both Cowboys. So that was a good answer there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time with us, Ryan, and we're looking forward to that entrance on a nightly basis.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right, we're meeting at the Apple with another new member of the New York Mets, fresh off the trade deadline. We're here with Cedric Mullins. And Cedric, one of the coolest things I feel like I've seen and read about you is how much of an anime fan you are, and specifically Naruto.
Yeah, so I got a younger brother. Me and him grew up watching cartoons, anime. Basically everything. So we got into Naruto pretty quick, and I've been keeping up with it all the way through.
And I saw that you said it actually, like, you used it as inspiration at like one point in your career.
Yeah, to an extent. You know, he's someone that just works diligently, never gives up. You know, I think those are certain qualities that, you know, really just help individuals in general. So I think it was pretty easy for me to take on.
Another pretty well-known thing about you, or association with you, is the viral Little Man video. Cedric Mullins, I can't escape him. First of all, have you had a chance to meet Little Man yet?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
He did come to Camden Yards during an Angels series, so he's a huge Angels fan, so that worked out perfectly. He was a great dude. Awesome getting to know him a little bit out there. And I think it's funny, I did hit a home run that night, so they put him on screen on the Jumbotron that night after the fact, too, so it was funny.
That's incredible. Now, I know he's a big Mike Trout guy. He's worn the Mike Trout jersey. And in one of your last games as an Oriole, you made a catch that was very similar to the pretty famous Mike Trout home run robbery. I think that was back in like 2012 or 2013 at Camden Yards. Take us through the catch. I mean, off the bat, you think you have a chance at it, and then you come down with the ball, and it was a great, great moment for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, off the bat, I felt it was going to be more routine. It had some pretty decent height to it. Didn't expect it to travel that much. And as I'm kind of running back, I'm like, yo, this ball has a chance to go over the wall. So because of the height, it gave me a lot of time to get to the wall, kind of read it, and was able to make a great leap and catch at that point.
So coming into this clubhouse, you actually had some relationships with guys on the team already. You played with a few guys at the WBC. Does it make it easier, like coming in and just knowing a few guys already?
Yeah, it 100% does. Even so, everyone's been very welcoming, very cool. Getting to know these guys in person. It's funny competing against them for years and years and years, and all of a sudden we're teammates. It's always funny going through that. But yeah, definitely an easy transition coming in. The guys have been great.
And you made your debut on Friday. I was actually sitting out with the 7 line in the 9th or 10th inning when you went out there to play defense for the first time. And I heard the crowd chanting your name, and you turned around and you acknowledged them, which was a really nice moment. How great have the fans been? How welcoming have they been to you since the trade?
They've been awesome. They're super excited to have me here, and it's exciting to be here. You know, I think the goal for me at the end of the day is to go out there and play hard every single day. That's what they do.
Now, there was a bit of, not controversy, but big controversy, let's call it, after the trade. Obviously, you wore 31 with the Orioles, and I don't know if you're familiar. There's a prankster Twitter account on Mets Twitter who said the Mets were going to unretire 31 for Cedric Mullins, which obviously is not true. But you're wearing the number 28. So I'm wondering, is there a significance to 28 or?
Not at all.
No? Okay.
It was a number. I was like, even 31 kind of at the time was just available. So I was like, let's run it. It doesn't matter what the number is on the back. I'm ready to go out there.
So how do you like New York lifestyle so far? Like, have you you've settled down somewhere? Do you have an idea of like what life was going to be like on a daily basis now?
I am nowhere near settling down yet. I am still out there searching. It's tough, but everyone's been very accommodating. So we'll get acclimated here pretty soon and get more comfortable than I am right now.
Well, at least you've had plenty of experience. You played in the AL East, so you've been to New York plenty. And during your time with the Orioles, you used to be a switch hitter. And you gave up hitting righty, exclusively hitting lefty. You said it was before the 2021 season, which you had a 30-30 year. So it seems like you made the right decision. But switch hitting is kind of a dying breed in the game. There really aren't too many switch hitters. I know there's actually a couple on this team. Yeah. But what led you to making the decision? Because there are some guys who are much better from one side than the other. And I know it's the platoon advantage. But sometimes I feel like trying for the platoon advantage is almost a detriment to a guy. So what led to you saying, you know what, I'm just going to focus on hitting lefty?
Yeah, I guess a quick background. I didn't start really hitting in-game switch hitting until high school senior year, so relatively late. And I just wanted to try to increase my value as a player, just across colleges, across professional baseball if possible. And so I, started implementing switch hitting. So stuck with it for as long as I could. By the time I got to the big leagues, just wasn't keeping up with, the advancement of the game and things of that nature. So I always had a strong left-handed swing compared. So it was just, it felt like an easy decision. It was tough, to think about the adjustments I'd have to make, especially going back into it, facing big league pitching as a left-handed hitter against left-handed pitching for the first time in would have been 10 years at that point. But just had confidence in it.
So is it hard to balance, like you find out you're getting traded and like, you were in Baltimore for your whole career and you find out you're getting traded to the Mets and, it's exciting because it's a team that's on a playoff race right now, trying to go to the postseason, trying to do big things. How do you balance the emotions of like, oh, wow, like, this chapter of my life has ended, but I'm excited to be going to this next spot?
I think the biggest thing was me finding common ground. I think at the end of the day, it's baseball, and baseball is the same across the league. So coming in, knowing, what I feel like my role, my job is to go out there, strong defense, add a little bit to the plate, and just go from there.
Who were some of your favorite baseball players growing up?
I grew up in Georgia, so some of my favorite ones, Anthony Jones was my favorite center fielder growing up, watching Chipper Jones. I mean, the Braves had a pretty solid team.
Yeah.
I know.
I didn't want to ask if you were a Brave fan growing up. I guess I kind of should have known that your favorite players were Braves, and I think we got the answer just now.
You could almost say it was forced on me, just because of where I was at. So, it's just one of those things. But, yeah.
All right, now I'm gonna try to win you back right now with people. Now give us your Mount Rushmore of anime. Let's go anime shows.
Anime shows, okay. So,
and then I'm gonna have you after do characters.
Oh, geez. Okay. Anime shows. Naruto's up there. Death Note was a really good one that I watched. I've been watching My Hero Academia. I'm actually continuously waiting like everyone else for some more episodes to come out. And then I'm going to give one to my brother, One Piece.
Singh is a huge One Piece fan, but not the show, only the manga.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I believe that's the cartoon book, right? The manga?
The book.
Oh, I mean, clearly one of us is a bigger anime guy than the other.
And My Hero Academia, I feel like, just if you don't know it, it's the perfect intro show for somebody, because if you know superheroes, it's a really easy entrance to an anime and getting used to that storyline that gets built. Yeah. But it's my obviously Dragon Ball Z is kind of the GOAT. That's But
I have a dumb question. Is Pokemon an anime?
It is.
Like the show?
It is, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I was a huge fan of that back in the day, so I guess I am an anime guy. I should have been down there.
All right, now give me your 4 characters.
Oh, man. Okay. 4 characters. Shikamaru from Naruto is probably one of my favorite ones. He's just super smart. Uses his intellect all the time. I will give it to Goku, being in Dragon Ball Z. I mean, he wants to smoke all the time. It's fun to watch. So, let's see. I need 2 more. Boy, this is a tough one. I might have to give it to another Naruto character.
It's fair.
Madara Uchiha.
Okay.
So he's
got 1 spot left.
Beast. And let's see. Right now.
I like how much this means to you, because you don't want to mess up.
Yeah, I want to give some true credit out there to some of these guys. So I might give it to one more Naruto.
Say Ash Ketchum. Ash Ketchum,
but it's not him.
It's not Ash Ketchum.
Okay. I'll give it to Rock Lee.
You're gonna fill it up with a fourth Naruto.
Fourth Naruto character. Rock Lee.
Okay.
He ain't got no powers, but he's out there rocking it. So
I thought you might have thrown an All Might in. I thought you might have given a Deku, but I think those are solid. I think we know what show you. I think it's very clear. But
Cedric, Ash Ketchum.
He doesn't win.
All right. We're here to win.
We're
here to win.
Cedric, thank you so much for taking the time, man.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right, those are 3 great interviews, a great time. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed doing those interviews, and I hope you like this deadline special. Thank you guys for always listening, and please, again, subscribe to the show, give a 5-star review. It goes such a long way. You don't understand what that does for growing the show, and all we want is to do a good show for you guys. It's all we want. So please go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, give us 5 stars, write out the review. Thank you so much for listening. And before we get out of here, I got to remind you about our good friends over at PC Richard & Son. PC Richard & Son. Are you looking for a TV? Are you looking for a stove? Are you looking for a fridge, a microwave, a toaster oven? Anything you need, this is the place to go. Friendly sales staff, knowledgeable, can tell you about anything you need to know. That's one of the biggest keys about PC Richard & Son. You go to any other store, you shop online, you're not going to get that personal touch, and you're not going to be able to ask questions and say, what can fit my lifestyle? You go to PC Richard and they actually will tell you, no, you don't need that. You don't need to go to this level. You can actually just get this. This is actually better for you, because they care. When PC Richard sends you something, they will go as far to give you that white glove service, make sure it's set up, make sure it's good for you, so you don't call them back saying, hey, something's messed up. So PC Richard & Son, get there. Enjoy it. It's been around since 1909 because they're the best in the business. So do all your shopping at PC Richard & Son. The podcast is presented by PC Richard & Son, and we'll see you guys next time at the Apple.